identifying changes in the creator market. A lot of this work was done in partnership with Ben Carroll up in the front corner, and you'll be seeing from him later in the panel. And I'll be talking about some broad changes that we've been seeing in the creator market. So I'm not going to go through this slide in detail, but I want to put it up here so you can kind of see where I'm going to end up. So I'm going to be talking about defining creators as well as 3 big shifts that we've been seeing. So to start, I'm going to set the stage by talking about how we define creators here at Instagram. And what I think is probably even more important than just thinking about how we define creators, but how research can play a key role in defining who is and who is not a creator. So at Instagram, we did exactly that. We did a lot of interviews with creators. We talked about what do they feel makes them a creator? What makes that different than just being someone who maybe just shares content online? So after we did these interviews, we actually developed a screener survey to identify creators. We cognitively tested this in a number of countries, in a number of languages, and we've been using it throughout the company ever since then. And you can see here the characteristics of creators that we have identified through that work. And I want to talk about just a couple of these. The first one is individuals. And individuals, blurring this line between an individual versus a business can be a little bit tricky, but the way we tend to think about it is you could be a creator who owns a business, like the Kardashians own a business, but you still know them as individuals, as opposed to something else like Hilton Hotels, where you really don't know the individual who's posting on behalf of Hilton Hotels. It's just the hotel voice. And then the final thing that this really came through with a lot of our research in particular is having some sort of goal beyond having fun. So if someone's a creator, they're not just saying, oh, I'm just playing around with it. It's just for fun. They often have some sort of intention. Like maybe they want to earn money, maybe they want to build community, maybe they want to change things for the better, so enact social change, grow their following. There's some sort of goal behind being a creator. And once you have your definition of creator, as researchers, it's important to note that you're probably going to want to adapt that definition as well. So your market, your population is going to be changing too. And for folks in the room, we're all researchers. We're the ones who are talking to creators day in, day out. We're the ones who can best identify if the creator market is changing. So we can see if users are changing their behaviors, if their goals are changing, because we also sit with the business. We can see if the company may be exploring a new line of business, or if there might be more macro environment or technology changes, like new platforms, new tech, that might also shape how creators are defined. So this presentation is all about change, but really the first change that we need to keep in mind is how the creator definition might change. And as researchers, we need to be cognizant of that and really on the front lines of seeing how we might want to adapt as a result. So now I've talked about some of the first changes, but I want to dive into some other big shifts that we've seen in the creator market. And a lot of this is based on global research that Meta conducted, and we commissioned to FactWorks. And this research, it used the creator definition that I shared earlier. We also limited to people with 1,000 plus followers on any social media app. And this is the part that I think will be particularly relevant for everybody in the room, is that this is not just creators at Instagram. This is creators at any social media app. And even when I say any social media app, I don't mean just YouTube and TikTok. We talked about over 40 social media apps. And we even looked at ones that were very specific to certain countries. For instance, one app is called ShareChat, and this is widely available mainly in India, but not a lot of other countries. So we're very extensive. So when we talk about creators, we mean this in the very broad sense of the term. I also have information here about our sample, our weighting, and then you can also see the countries where we conducted this research. So here are the changes that I want to highlight for you. So I'm going to talk about global growth, new technology, and community. To begin, let's talk about global growth. And I'm going to start with a little bit of a poll for folks in the audience who get to participate. Take a minute to think about what country do you think has the most creators? So I'm going to ask you to raise your hand to participate. So raise your hand if you think it's Japan. What about the United States? All right, seeing some hands up. What about folks who think it's India? Okay, some high votes for India. And then what about Brazil? All right, so we're seeing like a good divide between India and Brazil. What we ended up seeing is that it was India, which you might be saying, oh, well, India is a really large country. Maybe it's just there's a lot of people in India, that's why there's a lot of creators, but we actually saw that the prevalence of creators in India was particularly high as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about what kinds of things make India unique. But one thing it also makes me wonder about is maybe creation for people in different countries. Maybe it could present opportunity for social or economic mobility as well. So one of the things I think that's really interesting is not just seeing where growth is, but how it looks different in different countries. So here you can see the total market share of creators based on the countries we looked at. So as I alluded to, we could see India is really big, and then all the way the top 5 countries, India, Indonesia, Brazil, US, Mexico, these 5 largest creator markets, these represent 78% of the total market surveyed. So this is huge amounts just by these top 5 countries. And in addition to talking about how this is dispersed, we can see, well, a lot of folks are clustered in some of these very prominent creator countries. Across the 20 countries we looked at, we estimated 362 million creators. This is massive. So 362 million is a huge number of creators. And that's why we're all here today, because this is a huge industry. But what I find even more striking than just the sheer number of creators is how much this market has grown. I cannot overstate how explosive the growth in the creator market has been. If we just look at the 5 countries that I have here, we see 52% growth just across 2 years. And so for countries like Nigeria on the far right, we've seen a growth in 3 million creators over a 2-year time span. But in India, we could see huge growth. We see 45 million creators joining in the last 2 years. So really massive growth. And this is something where you also don't have to just take my word for it. We also looked and we see that Adobe also externally did their own research, and they also saw massive creator growth. This is not something that happens commonly. It is not typical to see explosive population growth like this. So I would hate for people in the audience to then be like, oh, this is interesting. What's the next trend? This is something that we really need to pause and think about what implications this could have broad reaching across the creator market. And so I want to also implore folks to really think about what this might mean for your companies as well. And I alluded to this earlier, but one of the other things we noticed is that when we think about the creator market, we don't want to just say, oh, look, the creator market's grown so much. That's just so many new creators. We also want to think about what this might mean for different countries. So for instance, when we looked at India, we saw that there was a lot of internet expansion that can also be driving some of this. When we looked at countries like Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, so a lot of countries in Africa, we've seen a lot of growth in large youth populations, so we see a lot of younger creators. And then other countries like the US, we saw, while the creator population is growing, we're seeing some signs of saturation, that like maybe we might be kind of stabilizing in terms of growth. So just getting a better understanding of like what things look like in these different markets can give us a better sense of how to support creators. And so what I want you to take back for this as researchers, please don't take this and just be like, oh, that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting trend. This is really going to have long-term reverberations in the creator economy and the creator market for time to come. So if you haven't thought about this for your own company, think about the countries that your company supports, how you might want to think about long-term global strategy, and not just globally, but individual countries and how your strategy might differ for those countries. So the second trend I'm going to talk about is new technology. And you might be sitting there and thinking, okay, there's always new technology coming out. Like, what makes this a trend? But what we saw with creation in particular is that during COVID, a lot of people were spending additional time during lockdown, looking at their phones. And we've seen preferences starting to shift. So we've seen a lot more people having more of a preference for short form video content, and then also having a higher expectation for the quality of images that they see, the quality of those videos that they see as well. So we're seeing a lot of software and hardware really advancing to meet that need. And what we're seeing now is a wealth of opportunities and options for creators. So with software, there's been a lot of video editing improvements. There's Gen AI tools coming out. with hardware. Cameras have improved a lot. Even to give an example here at Instagram, we have Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. I have a pair and I love them. You can take photos, you can take videos with them as well. So it's really designed with the creation experience in mind. And so what do creators think about all of these technology changes? I'm going to pull up some external research that was done by Amplify and Deloitte, and you could see that this looks specifically at Gen AI, but you could see in general, they're pretty optimistic. So some work by Amplify shows that 69% of creators think that AI is going to positively disrupt the creator economy. So they're feeling optimistic about it. And then we also see when it comes to top uses for AI, they think, well, I'll use this for ideas, for managing workflow, for captions. But we're also at this point where there's so many options out there, even for Gen AI. There's always new features and new tools coming out. So creators have just this wealth of options to choose from. And they oftentimes need a little bit more guidance to figure out, well, what's the right one for me? So I'll give another example. This comes from our own research that we did, is when we look at AR and VR, we see that the majority of creators are interested in AR. 56% say they're very or extremely interested in AR, and then 60% say very or extremely interested in VR. So they're interested, they're excited, but are they using it? We see that currently 5% or fewer are currently using these tools. And when we dive into this and see, well, what's really going on, we see that creators need more encouragement. They need training, they need access to get started. And I think a lot of this really kind of ties back to there's so much technological advancement and such a wealth of tools that creators have to choose from that we need to do a lot more, not to just say, well, here's all these cool tools, try this new technology, but really here's the right one for you. Like, not all creators have the same goals. How can we help, as researchers, help creators adapt to tech changes in a way that feels right for them and feels right for their goals? Because sometimes even these new technologies, like creators are like, well, I want to know all the details of like AR and like what could this look like for me? So really helping develop a shared language and helping them see what fits for them and their needs for the coming years. The third trend that I'm going to talk about is community. So it's probably not going to be a surprise for folks here in the room that creators care about their community. When we talk with creators, a lot of them say community is the reason that they became a creator in the first place. And we could see this too when we ask creators to share their top milestones. We see of the top 5 milestones, the top 3 really also have to do with community. So reaching a certain number of followers, fans expressing appreciation, or saying that they were inspired or influenced by their content. So we could really see how community is really important for creators. But the trend that we've been starting to see is that creation is really starting a lot more conversation and a lot more interactions. So if you look on the left side, these are just some examples of the ways that creators say that they interact with their audiences. So creators interact with their audiences in a wide variety of ways. There's a lot of conversations that are happening. We're also hearing from fans that they love this. They want to talk more with creators. They don't want to just follow someone because their content is cool. They want to get to know the creator and what they value and what they care about. So this is the trend that we're seeing. But for folks, kind of us in this room, I actually think that we're on the precipice of a broader sea change. I think that community is going to be shifting quite a bit. I think that it's going to go beyond just fan-creator interaction. And Laura, you did a lot kind of alluding to this as well. I think that we're going to see like a blurring between who's a creator, who's a fan. I think we're going to see a lot more people collaborating with creators. Even just looking at this, we see 42% of creators say that they collaborate today. I think we're going to see that continue to grow. So I think we're at this broader sea change, and I want people in this room to think about how, as researchers, we can help our teams go beyond just thinking about creator-fan interactions to thinking about how community is going to continue to change and continue to evolve. We might see a lot more fan-to-fan interaction. We're going to see more blurring the line between fan and creator, creators collaborating with one another. So I think that this is a trend that we haven't seen the end of yet, but I think is really just kind of gaining momentum. So if you haven't thought about this yet for your companies, I highly encourage you to think about that and think about, yes, creator-fan interactions, that's not going to go away, but where is this going to go in the future? And I want to go back to that key takeaway slide that I shared at the beginning. I talked about how research can play a key role in defining creators. But more importantly, we also have opportunity to alert teams to how that definition is changing and how it should be changing. I talked about global growth. As I mentioned earlier, I cannot overstate how massive this change is. This is something that is going to reverberate for a long time, and it's a perfect opportunity to think about what this means for your company and your company's global strategy, especially at a country level. I talked about new technology and how as researchers we can play a key role in helping creators pick from the wealth of new technology that's coming out every day to the ones that really fit their goals and their needs. And last, I talked about community, helping, and how I think that there's this broader sea change that's going to go beyond just creator-fan interaction to really evolving the nature of community, to be more about the fluid nature of, are you a fan, are you a creator, and building fan communities as well. And in closing, I know I kind of talked about these trends separately, but I think that what we're going to be seeing in the future is I think we're going to see a lot of these trends converging. So for instance, with technology changes, there's a lot of work that's happening in translation and dubbing. How might that help creators connect globally or connect with their fans globally? Might we see a world where we'll have the Mr. Beasts of the world collaborating with small creators in Indonesia and then connecting with a new fan base in Brazil to talk about their content? So I think that it'll be really cool to see how these evolve and change in the future. So with that, I'm going to open things up for questions.